All right, Bengaluru, here we are today. With us, we have an amazing person, a very good friend of mine, Lisa Scolnick. Lisa has been, working with the manufacturing industry, high performance, and she's an amazing coach. She's an amazing teacher and amazing friend as well. And today, what's special is she's up at 3 o'clock in the night, in the early morning, just for coming up on this webinar, which is truly, like, I'm so grateful for that. And the second of all is today Lisa is going to be talking about operational levers to grow your business gracefully. So nobody has spoken about this, growing business gracefully. That means without getting tensed, without getting anxious about it. Am I right, Lisa?
Yes,
Is this
yes, you're right.
okay?
It's how to manage it so you don't get stressed.
You don't get stressed, you don't get busted. So, okay, over to you, Lisa. I think you have a very beautiful presentation also lined up for all of us here. So I don't want to consume any more seconds or minutes from your precious time. Let's get started. Over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I'm really excited about next week and arriving in India and to see everyone at the Super Achiever Summer Summit in February. So I will get started on my presentation.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about operational levers to grow your business gracefully. And just to give you a little bit of background, what I've done is I've been working in manufacturing companies for many, many years. And I've also been able to take some of the great tools that help us manage operations in manufacturing and to be able to take it into an office and experience those same benefits. So that's what I'm going to share with you today, is how do you take some of these great tools and great strategies that that are absolutely necessary in a manufacturing environment and bring it into the office. So here's what we're going to learn today. The first thing is to understand the fight against human nature. We have some natural tendencies that sometimes we don't realize are happening. So we're going to talk about those and how you can avoid them. Be aware of them so that you can avoid them. The second is the key levers or key levers to know and manage your operation. Also, if you're aware of what they are, you can measure them and you can use them to your advantage in your business. The third is a critical tool to stay on track every day. So how do you get your arms around your operation to make sure you're managing it every day and you have a tool that helps you do that? And the last is we talk about productivity. I call it the Ferrari of metrics because people talk about productivity, but they don't actually know what it means. They just say, oh, okay, well, our operation or our business is productive. But unless you're measuring it, you don't know exactly how productive you are or you can be. So let's first talk about the human nature and time. Humans in general, we don't have a good perception of time. And it's very easy for us to lose track of time. Have you ever been working on something and you look at a clock and you say, oh my goodness, I have no idea where all that time went? Well, that same goes for doing work at business or just in general having a concept of time. Humans don't have a good concept of time. And that's why we need clocks. So here's one of the dangers. Here's what this means to your business.
And Lisa, sorry for interrupting.
Yes.
You wanted to pull up your slideshow, like you wanted to share your screen. We don't see that yet.
Oh, you don't? Oh,
no problem.
I apologize.
Not at all. It's cool. No problem.
Okay, so let me.
Yeah, okay. Just share.
Sorry, forgot that one detail.
I'm here to remind you.
Okay, great. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay, great. So,
all right, please go ahead.
Okay, let me just, okay. One of my favorite quotes is from C. Northcote Parkinson, which he really sums it up. Work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. If you have an hour to do work and it's an hour's worth of work, you'll tend to get it done. But if you know you have 8 hours, the tendency is you'll spread that out. So let me show you what that means. So what does this mean for your business? Let's say you have each of these blocks represents 1 hour of work. And if you do them diligently, not fast, I mean, we're not expecting people to work faster than they're capable or faster than, is really sustainable. If it can be done in 5 hours, ideally you want that to be completed in 5 hours. But unless you're tracking this, the tendency would be that would spread out to 8 hours. And you'll notice here that there are these small chunks of time, and these may also be spread out a little differently, but those small chunks of time is what makes us less productive. So we don't want to spread that work out. We want to only use the time that's needed. And again, it's, at a nice steady pace and without wasting a lot of time. And the difference between this diagram and the previous one is these small chunks of time are not usable. They're just totally wasted. So basically, you're not getting as much done in your operation as you can, and you're also paying people to not get as much done, which then increase your operations, your labor costs. So this is what we want. We want the work to be diligently done in order. And of course, there would be breaks in there, but what we are looking for is this big chunk of time where it could be used for something else and something more productive. And so that is the goal. But I wanted you to be mindful of the fact that human nature is to actually spread it out. So a few tips is you want to stay on top of your metrics as you grow and plan ahead on adding your resources. So as you grow or as new work comes in, you want to be able to be very strategic and very specific about what new resources you need and when you need them. Just because you're getting busy doesn't mean you start throwing people at it. In actuality, what happens with that is it gets even more chaotic and everyone's confused and they really don't know what work is expected of them next. A few words of caution: just make sure that the work is doable, that you're not trying to squeeze 12 hours of work to be done in 8 hours. So there is a balance between how much time it does take to get done and how much time is, are you squeezing too much in? So as you can see here, if someone needs to squeeze in a lot more work within a shorter period of time, people will take shortcuts. They might miss things. They might be overwhelmed and not get the work done correctly, which then means that's a negative impact for your customer, and your customer is the last person you want to disappoint. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about are the key levers to manage. So how do you get your arms around the time? How do you manage that time? How do you manage your team? And know what to track, how to measure, so that you could make good decisions. And the key with that is your levers are always changing. It's rare that they are static. So I want you to get to understand what these levers are and to be mindful of them. So let's use this illustration. So there's a bucket of water, and that's your work. There's an input and there's an output. So as water's flowing into the bucket, you also have water flowing out of the bucket. So coming into the top faucet is your input. It could also be known as your demand or your orders. That is the work coming in. And sometimes, I mean, if you have a transactional business, you might be able to count it very easily, where in a business where it's projects, it might be a little bit more subtle, but you want to know how much work is coming in and how to quantify it. The next is your output. That is also known as throughput, or the work that gets done. So again,
one second again.
yes.
Are you showing any illustrations on screen, because we don't see them? Are you still on the
Yes.
0-1 slide, the number 1 slide?
No, I am on 0-2.
Okay, but we don't see that. All we see is your slide deck on the left and your 0-1 slide on the main screen. So maybe you should, yeah, now it changed to 0-2. Maybe I think you should open it in full screen, or press, or you can, yeah.
Okay, now let me see if, is that next one changing? Do you see the next one?
Not yet. Maybe it will take a few seconds. We still see the slide deck. I mean, your presentation.
Okay, would it be better if...
Can you click the F5 key?
No, that's, oh, it's the other, never mind. Let me see.
But we can still see the second slide now. But it would have been better if it is like full screen.
Okay.
All right, no problem. We can continue with this. Otherwise, no problem.
So do you want me to continue on this slide?
Yes, we are seeing the second slide now. If you advance, that's not showing up. Maybe you should advance here as well. Or you can open up in full screen mode.
Let me see.
And from your screen share, you have shared the entire screen, is it? Or just the PowerPoint?
Let me get out of screen share for 1 second.
And screen share your entire screen, then it will work.
Oh, is it this one? Okay.
Oh, now we can go back. Just open the presentation. It should work.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that work?
Yes. Cool.
Okay. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about the ins and outs. So let's use this bucket as an illustration of your group and your work. So there's an input coming in at the top, and at the bottom there's an output. So the input is known as the demand or the orders coming in. The output is your throughput, or the work that is getting done. And ideally, you want the flow of the work coming in to be pretty close to equal to the work coming out. Okay, so in that case, when these two equal, you have stability. The level of the water rises, will pretty much stay the same. And sometimes it will fluctuate. Maybe a little bit more is coming in or a little bit more is leaving, and it's going up and down. But in general, you want it to stay within that bucket. So what happens when the input is greater than the output, you get a backlog. And the backlog can get so high that the water overflows, and that means trouble. That means that you cannot keep up with the pace of your demand. That means you're getting more work than your team can handle. So, it can actually feel like this. It can feel overwhelming, and the boat's filling up, and you don't know what to do. And one of the natural responses is to just add a lot of people to your operation, and that might not be the best solution. So it's best to keep your eye on your ins and outs and be able to measure that, so that you know exactly when you should be bringing new resources in. So you definitely want stability. That is what you're looking for, where the inputs and the outputs equal. So here's what you'll need to know in order to manage those levers. So you know the inputs, you know the outputs. So here's a few more. The next I'm going to talk about load. That is the total time needed to complete the work that's coming in. It's represented with time. So that your load might be, 6 hours per day, or if you have a team, it might be 100 hours per day. And you calculate that by calculating the quantity that's coming in times the time it takes to complete each one. The next thing I'd like you to know is capacity, and that's a total time you have available to do the work. So if you think about load is the amount of time of the work coming in, and capacity is the total time you have available. And capacity can be calculated by the number of people you have times the number of hours that they work. So the bottom line is that you want the load and the capacity to equal. The load must not exceed the capacity. Actually, it is a little bit better if you have a little bit more capacity than you need, but not a lot more. You want it to be manageable because you want to be able to have a little bit of a leeway in order to you want a little bit of leeway so that if you do have some fluctuations in your demand, that you can actually handle it and you're not on top of it and the bucket doesn't overflow too quickly. And you need enough, so basically you need enough time, you need enough people and time to complete the work that is coming in. And remember, as we talked a little bit about the human nature, you want to be careful with not having too many people, otherwise the work will spread out. So you only want to use the time that you need. Knowing your inputs, your outputs, your load, and your capacity helps you balance your load and your capacity. And those are your levers, and those are changing. Some of the ways that those levers could change is someone could leave your organization. And if they leave, you've just lost a chunk of capacity. Or you could have some, an exciting thing happen, and you could have a new business or a new customer come on board, which then increases your load. So you want to be able to see that and manage that and know that, okay, if we get more business today, do we have enough capacity? And if not, how are we going to add capacity, and at what function or what job would we add that capacity to? Okay. The third thing I'm going to talk about is a daily plan, or how to stay on track. So how do you avoid all of the challenges with, the human nature of spreading the work out, and, how do you manage that to make sure that you're always in a good place, you're always in a healthy spot to be able to manage and make good business decisions? And the secret is to plan your time and to know that each day that you're doing your work, that you are, that you've allocated time to do that. And that way you could also check, are you actually meeting it? Or, and if you're not meeting it, to ask the question, what got in your way, so that you could fix it. Many organizations, they just move along and they're trying to get the work done, and they're not sure why, their team can't meet it. So they make assumptions that, gee, we need to add more people. Well, maybe adding more people isn't the solution. Maybe there's too many problems that are getting in the way of the work, and maybe those problems should just be solved. Then you're back on track again. So let's compare a couple options. On the left is a to-do list. So let's say your team, everyone keeps a to-do list. And a to-do list is just a list of, here's the things that I need to work on, the things that I need to do. Basically, the list is random. There may not be an order to it. People may scan through their list and say, well, I'm not I'm kind of tired, so I'm going to pick something easy to work on versus the thing that you really need to work on. They may avoid difficult work. No, there are no time goals. So someone may plan to do a specific task, but if there are no time guidelines, we call it, if it's not time bound, then it could very well stretch out and take a long time to complete. And a to-do list also requires someone to scan that list every day and decide, gee, what am I going to do now? It could also be overwhelming, especially if the work has spread out and they're falling behind, and they know they're falling behind. The throughput, which is the output, can vary greatly from day to day and from team member to team member. Also, you could lose focus, and you could work around problems instead of solving them. And then the question at the end of the day is the load and the capacity matching. When you have a random to-do list, you have no idea whether your load is matching your capacity. You may find several days later that, gee, we've been falling behind, and you really didn't know. The alternative is to have a work plan, and it's a planned list of work. So if you have a small team, it might be your team getting together and talking about, oh, these are the top things we all need to work on. It also includes chunks of time where the blocks of time where it's a specific amount of time with specific work assigned. You use your best hours wisely. Maybe in the morning you do some of the most demanding work, or you do some of the work that is more challenging or requires extreme focus. You want your best hours or your freshest hours. In a to-do list, that may end up being at the end of the day. So with a work plan, you're making those conscious decisions to get those done early in the day. Then when work is time bound, the other thing that happens is you get to identify problems. If you've missed, so let's say a task should take an hour and you didn't finish it until an hour and a half later. You have to ask yourself the question, what got in my way? Why did it take so long? And once you get used to a work plan, you feel really good about it, and you try to hit that hour. And for some reason, it took an extra half hour. You want to be able to identify what got in your way so that could be fixed. So if it's for example, a chronic computer problem, and everyone is facing the same thing, you want to be able to actually fix that problem so that it doesn't keep reoccurring day in and day out and every day. And once people get used to the problems, they will work around it. They almost become invisible. Sometimes they think that, oh, well, this is just the way it is, and they keep moving forward. But that means that their work will continue to take longer than planned, just because they got so used to the problems. Having a work plan also helps you focus on the plan, and if things change, you could easily adjust it. But you know what your plan is, and you can focus on it. There's less overwhelm because as you work through the day, you know exactly how much you're accomplishing. Your throughput is also predictable. You know what your plan is. You know by a certain time you should be at a certain place in your workload, and that helps you project for the next day. You know how much you're going to get done. If there is a problem, you could correct it early. If the first task you work on took you twice as long, you know that, gee, you've just lost some time in the day, and perhaps there's someone else who is ahead and they can help you correct and adjust your work plan or adjust the team's work plan to be able to head that off and get it done early. Then it also helps to distribute work fairly. That's one of the things that I'm really passionate about, is how people feel about their work. Everyone knows that if you're working with a team of people and let's say one person isn't quite carrying their load, and most likely they're working off a to-do list. Well, that brings the morale down of the rest of the team. So you want this work in a work plan to be distributed fairly, and then it's clear to know who is doing their best and who may need help, who may need a little extra attention in order to get them back on track. And the best part of it is that each day you'll know whether your inputs and your outputs or your load and your capacity are matching. So see the difference between a to-do list and a work plan? It makes a huge difference in how you manage your workload, and you'll tend to be more productive by using a work plan. So, and I've heard in one of the other webinars, someone mentioned, the time you want the map is before you enter the woods, which is so true. You don't want to go in there, not have a plan, and then fall short or get stuck. So the work plan helps you stay on track. So what do these look like? Let me show you a couple different examples. In a manufacturing setting, we would have a column for time, planned quantities, and the key is from, in this example, it's from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. The expectation is that we can make 100 parts, that it's at a nice doable pace. If we stay on track, we would enter 100 in here. Now, if we didn't get 100 or we got 80, we would write down the reason why there was a miss. So what got in the way, whether the machine broke down or we didn't have materials or some other problem occurred, we would write those down so that we can make sure that that the problem is fixed. But the team knows very clearly that from 7 to 8, the expectation is 100, and 8 to 9 is 100, and 9 to 10, because there's a break, they are only expected to do 75. So it's a very clear plan. Now, if between the hours of 7 and 8, if they only completed 50, well, then a red flag goes up, and everyone knows we need to give attention to this area to make sure that we get back on track and that we actually complete the work that's required and that our customers are expecting. We want to make sure that our customers are happy. So that's what we do in the manufacturing setting. In an office setting, it is your calendar. It's a basic, here's your calendar, and to take that time, take all the tasks that you need to do and assign them hour by hour. It's to jot down from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., here's what I'm going to work on. And from 8 to 9, here's what I'm going to work on. And it may not be that clear. Your work may be a little less predictable than that, but at least you're starting somewhere. At least here's my plan for the day. Here's what I'm going to work on. And to make sure that, make sure that you're on track. So again, two different examples, but they share the same philosophy. It's time-bound work. And if you did miss, I encourage you to actually reflect and identify what caused you to miss. And that way you can be very mindful of the problems, and you can get them fixed before they become bigger issues, or before your team gets bigger, because it's a small problem with a small team is a lot different than a problem with a big team. That's a lot of time that you lose if problems aren't fixed and it gets spread across an entire large team. So again, just a little bit of a recap on this is, how do you do the daily work plans? You want to know what your plan is, and you want to know what you actually did in relation to your plan. What you can do you want to assign what you can do within a specific time block, and also ask that question, did you complete what you expected to complete? And if not, what got in your way, and how could you get back on track again? And a few tips is plans should match the load. what we talked about earlier with the inputs and the outputs, and a small backlog. If you keep a small backlog or some water in the bucket, that helps you absorb some variation from day to day. So let's say Monday's busier than Tuesday, having a little bit of a backlog can help you absorb that. And then fix the problems as you find them. Don't let them persist, because a small organization with a small problem is a lot different than a lot of problems in a bigger organization. So if you do daily work plans and you are aware of your levers, you're well on your way to being stable and predictable, which is exactly what we want. Now let's talk about productivity, the Ferrari of metrics. I hear people talk about productivity all the time. Oh, my team's productive and this initiative made us more productive. But what I rarely see is people measuring productivity. They talk about it, but are they really sure that they're productive? And sometimes when maybe a team has gotten more productive, but if they're not measuring it, how do you know you're sustaining that productivity level? So let's talk a little bit about it. So why is productivity important? Because it's directly tied to your operating costs, your labor costs. And without knowing what those are, it's very difficult to manage it. And it gives you a baseline to measure over time and as you grow. When you calculate your productivity number, you will know that. And as you grow, you want to maintain it, or you want that number to go up. You do not want that productivity number to go down. And it's very easy to measure. So let me show you exactly how you measure productivity. You measure productivity, the basic overall general formula is output divided by input. So what did you get out with the resources that you put in? That is productivity. We also, in this example, or in companies measuring what their throughput is or what their output is, divided by the total number of hours that were put in to achieve that. So got to make sure that they're apples to apples. What did you get out with the total number of hours that you used to achieve it? Okay, so these examples that I talked about earlier, remember there's 5 hours. Hopefully you were seeing those, but if not, we'll see them again. So here's an illustration with five blocks, and each one representing 1 hour. And if this is when they're done on time, here below is an example where those 5-hour blocks were spread out. So let's use that as an example. And again, productivity is throughput divided by total hours. In the first example, you got 5 done, and it took you a total of 5 hours to complete. Your productivity is 1. And this number, these numbers vary. You just get your baseline. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. Now, in the second example, your throughput was 5, but it took you a total of 8 hours to complete. So 5 divided by 8 is 0.625. That's quite a dip. That's more than a 25% dip in, just more like 33% dip in productivity. So you want to be calculating that to make sure that you're not, as you're making decisions or as each day goes by, that you're sustaining your productivity levels. So let me just go back up there. A couple other things, it doesn't have to be throughput divided by total hours. What you want to be mindful of is it's output divided by input. That could be different things for you. It could be dollars divided by headcount. I personally like throughput divided by total hours because it's helping you manage your resources. But again, it could be any output that makes sense for you and your business, and it could be any input that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about, let's just recap, what you learned today. how to keep your business running smoothly by managing your levers, knowing what your inputs and your outputs and your load and your capacity are, and to make sure that you stay productive as you grow. That productivity number should stay linear, or it should go up. If you are doing, let's say, process improvements, that number should go higher. And you got this. Like, these are some very simple concepts that will make a difference if you keep them in mind, and you're actually measuring them, and you're making some good decisions around them. So again, we talked about the human tendency of spreading work out, and to be mindful of that. And we talked about levers that you need to know, such as input, output, load, and capacity. What's coming in, you want it to equal what is going out, and that means stability. In order to manage that stability, you want to plan your work and make it time-bound. And making it time-bound helps you also surface problems that may occur. And lastly, we talked about measuring productivity to help you manage your business and, to make good decisions. So knowing those, some of you may not be, operations people, you may be creatives, you may be, working at different parts of your business and how you started them, but you do need to know a little bit about operations to manage your business, because it is part of your business. So hopefully some of these things that we learned today will help you be mindful of them. And if you don't want to do it, perhaps that's a role that you bring into your organization as someone who can manage your operation. How are you making sure that your customer is satisfied without being too costly? So that is it. I thank you so much. I appreciate all of you and your time, and apologize about some of the glitches at the beginning. And I would love to see each and every one of you at the Super Achiever Summit, where we'll talk a little bit more about this and how to engage your people in your initiatives.
All right.
So let me get out of the screen share. Okay, I did it right.
Okay, I'm back here on the screen. Lisa, that was a wonderful presentation, and I could remember these 4 things that I had learned when I started doing the business, like operations, marketing, sales, and people. So these were the 4 corners that I was actually struggling when I started, working on my business years ago. But most always, what happens is we think, or we take operations for granted. We think it will happen automatically. And most entrepreneurs, like I'm talking on behalf of entrepreneurs here, which are large numbers, especially in Bangalore and India today, the entrepreneurism has really taken off. There are so many entrepreneurs here, and entrepreneurs have got one big problem, which is they don't have many people. The team is very lean at this moment. When they're just starting out, they're lean. And the thing is, I believe they take operations for granted, and they also take marketing for granted. They think I have built a great solution and people will buy it. And sometimes it happens. People will find value and they will come, and then the tap and the bucket thing, I could relate to that. More orders will come and they're not prepared to process those orders. And more revenue comes in, they don't know how to handle those revenues. And sometimes it's so unfortunate they have not focused on operations properly. And today's discussion about operations really opens minds of so many people here. That's what I believe. But anyway, I have a couple of questions here from there are 2 questions actually. Number 1, a woman by name Asha. I don't see her picture here, but I know she's a woman because of the name. She says, love your analogy of Ferrari, of metrics about productivity. And the question is how to figure out the balance between time and productivity.
So time and productivity. So there's a few. So within your operation, you want to know your demand that's coming in and what is the load attached to that demand. So if you have 100 orders coming in and they each take 5 minutes, it would be 500 minutes worth of work, which is the load. And depending on how many team members you have, you need 500 hours of capacity in order to get that work done. So that's where the balance is. You have to do the calculation of the load and know that you have enough resources to satisfy that load. And then from there, what is the expected time? So if the expected time is 5 minutes per order or per item that came in, because that's where you got the calculation for the load, you should be able to do 12 in an hour in order to get it done. So it depends on what your time is for that particular work, and is it only taking you that time? If it takes you 10 minutes when it should take 5, that is a problem. So I hope that, you have to know how long things take. If you don't know that, you got to go out and get that time. You have to have a general it could be time studies. It could be asking your team to say, okay, you're working on this. How many did you get done in an hour? And if you got 12 done in an hour, they're 5 minutes each. So I hope that cleared up, because you do need to make sure you get all the other information and pull it together and through like the time and quantity.
All right. Thanks for clarity, Lisa. And
Okay.
I think Asha was asking whether, like, she is trying to figure out the time component and the productivity component, because when you increase productivity, you will have more time, or when you decrease the time, will productivity increase, and to what extent? Maybe that's what she's trying to figure out. Maybe we are punching, as you said, like punching something every 5 minutes, and in an hour you are punching 12 such items. How to increase productivity? By decreasing the time, or is there another?
How do you increase productivity?
Yeah, perhaps that's the question.
Okay, so if you want to increase productivity, that's where process improvement comes in. If, let's say, something takes 5 minutes, you break down the process, and that's a lot of the work that I do. Is everyone wants to be more productive. Breaking down the work into steps and engaging your team in it. And actually, I'm going to talk about this at the Superachiever Summit, is a little bit about some of the tools on how to break that down. You want to break down your process and then bring your team together to figure out how can you make this better. Typically, we could take at least, if a process wasn't specifically designed to do something, it could, you could see as much as, taking half the time out. And if you do, that means each one only takes 2.5 minutes, which means you've now just doubled your productivity. So it's about going to the process and identifying ways to take time out of it. But you want to do that legitimately. You don't want to just say, okay, here's a new expectation. You now have to do these parts in 2.5 minutes instead of 5. You don't want to do that to people. They're going to make sure they're going to do shortcuts, and they're going to lose, you're going to lose your quality. And so you want to, like I said, break down the process and redesign it differently to take time out.
Awesome. I get it, Kristen. All right, another question. Lisa, thanks for sharing the distinctions between a to-do list and a work plan. You talked a lot about time, because that's always a constant. My question is, what's the best time period or time blocks to work or plan with? You shared, and I'm adding this, you shared hourly plans. Is there a better option, like what we have seen at Brendan's, or what's your idea about time blocks?
Okay, time blocks, and as Brendan teaches, you definitely want to take some breaks with your time blocks, especially if you're doing work that's mental work. What we have found, and what I typically recommend, is use your very earliest time to do your most challenging work. Whether it's more challenging because it needs more brain power, I would do those in the morning. You don't want to leave those for later in the day, because chances are you won't be as fresh. But the other thing is, I also encourage people to do the thing that they don't want to do first. And we use a phrase, eat your frog. So if the way the saying goes is, if you eat your frog, a live frog, first thing you do every morning, you eat that live frog, there won't be anything else the rest of the day that could be worse, right? So you take your most challenging, the most undesirable work, you do that very first thing in the morning, you force yourself to do it, and you the rest of your day will fly by, and you'll feel so much better about your day and about the work, because you got it done. If you don't do that first, that frog will sit on your shoulder all day, and he'll be ribbiting and making noises, and it actually drains your energy if you don't do your most challenging work first.
All right, here we go. That was so nice. Eat that frog. Yeah.
Yeah, not pleasant, but just make that first. That should be your first time block, is to do the thing that you want to do the least.
True, absolutely. I totally resonate with you, Lisa. And that frog had kept me, locked up in the same stage in the beginning years of my career. Like I lost almost 5 years unable to eat the frog. So
yeah,
that means unable to take the challenge. Going in front of a group of people could be that frog for you, or doing a video course, or doing a webinar like this. So many people have challenges doing a webinar, or going in front of a camera, or doing a lot of things, talking to people, communication. There's so many things that everyone feels like challenged about. And yeah, you nicely said that. Take up the challenge first, and also it adds that confidence loop. Like when you
yes,
yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And when people and if someone is avoiding their frog, that's what we do in high performance coaching, is help you get past that, help you understand why you're not eating the frog when you should be eating the frog. So we help you break that down and understand that why, so that you can move forward and break through it.
Awesome. So everybody loves productivity, and everybody wants to be more productive. So Lisa, would you be sharing some of like what you would be focusing on during your trip to India, especially at Super Achievers Summit? Would you like to share some of your plans, and what would you be discussing or teaching at Super Achievers Summit as well?
Okay. Yeah. Each person, so you can be productive. And what I'm really, really passionate about is, if you have a team, you want your team to feel like they're engaged and they're part of something great. They're part of something bigger than themselves. And many people in organizations just aren't inspired. I mean, they're just like, yeah, I come in and I do my work, but do they feel respected? Do they feel engaged? Do they feel inspired? Are they getting excited? And that's what I really, really love, so that to make sure that you don't have someone who is not connected, and that they'll tend to spread their work out to the 8 hours, a little bit of work, or they're not going to get that much done. And you want to know that every single person on your team is being productive, but not for part of it's to be productive for the business, but part of it is, you have to remember that each person on your team is a human being, and they want to be part of something great. And there's no other feeling in the world like having a team who's inspired, and you'll gain some productivity just by having people excited, and they'll be thinking about ways to solve some of the problems. If people aren't engaged and they're not inspired, those problems will be things that everybody complains about. So at the summit, I'm going to talk about how to make sure that you're connected to your team, and you're talking to your team, and you're also keeping them very productive. And there's no other way that one of the best ways that I have found to get a team really charged up and inspired is to engage them in making things better. Engage them in contributing, engage them to work on, improvements that make a difference for the organization. And with the first question that we had, like, how do you make things more productive? That's what I'm going to talk about at the summit. Like, it's all about engaging your team and then using certain tools and teaching them these tools so that they could actually, contribute and make things more productive, to make that time go down, and that ultimately raises the productivity level of an organization. But you can't do it without your people. That's why I'm going to talk about that.
Awesome. It's so nice, Lisa. Thank you so much for this preview of how it's going to be in the Super Achiever Summit. And folks, I would also like to add, of course, there will be problems when you are in business. Most of the time, you're solving problems, and you're also having higher aspirations to serve people as well. If you are having problems, obviously, because otherwise you're not in business. You're in a luxury resort. So you're in business and you're having problems. And if you want to be on the side of the solutions to these problems, I think you all should be present at Super Achiever Summit and listen to Lisa and all other speakers out there who are specially sitting on a plane for 24 hours, 28 hours, and coming all the way from different parts of the world, descending on Bengaluru, descending on India to be a part of Super Achiever Summit, and also talk to all of you, interact with you, teach you, and share their frameworks, share their strategies, share their perspectives and wisdom with all the people, experts, especially experts, entrepreneurs, and professionals, and some students as well. So all of you guys here, and on behalf of all of these people here, Lisa, I would like to thank you for coming online for this webinar at 3 a.m. in your time. And folks, from your side, I'm so grateful for Lisa, and I'm thanking Lisa on your behalf as well. And let's conclude this webinar and let her go back to a little more sleep at 3 o'clock.
I think that's why I was confused at the beginning.
So who I'm talking to? I'm trying to talk to both of you. I'm trying to be the bridge here. One side is Lisa, other side is are the people who are listening to this webinar. Also, some of those people who are not able to get on this webinar, I'm going to send them a replay link so that they can also understand some of the concepts that you shared today on the webinar as well. All right, Lisa, thank you so much for participating in this webinar. And now I think we should really let you go back to your seat.
Great. Thank you. It's been an honor. I'll see everybody in February. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.